You're welcome back to the news at 10. It's now to Abuja, where Linda Akigbe is standing by with more on the news.
Hi, I'm Marachi, and welcome back to the capital city. An Abuja High Court has dismissed an application seeking to discharge the former National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, from charges of corruption filed against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. The court held that it would be wrong to hold the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission responsible for the rearrest, since there is no evidence that the commission stopped the bail process. Our correspondent Amaka Okafor reports.
Former National Security Advisor Colonel Sambo Dasuki in court for the ruling in an application alleging that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission is in contempt of the court following his rearrest by the Department of State Services after meeting his bail conditions at an FCT High Court. Justice Hussein Baba Yusuf dismissed the application for lack of merit, saying he could not grant the application since there is no evidence that the anti-graft agency is interfering with the accused person's bail. He held that the Department of State Services, which rearrested the former National Security Advisor, cannot be held in contempt because the bail order in the instant case does not cover the agency. He also ruled that since his rearrest was not carried out by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, which is a party in the case, he is not inclined to quash the charges against the accused person because the commission has not committed any contempt in the instant case. Lawyers in the suit react to the ruling.
The court has said that we are on course, that certainly the trial can go on, that we are not in contempt of court proceedings.
We're going to reflect over it because EFCC is not stated as a complainant on the body of the charges. It is the federal government. And the federal government has all these agencies under it. It's like you have 5 children, and one is behaving well, the other one is not behaving well. You as the father, you have to be responsible for the conduct of all the children.
But the defense lawyer told the court that his client was not prepared for trial in the custody of the Department of State Services.
The court has given us an indication as to what we should do, and that is by way of challenging the act of the stranger. And like I did indicate in the courtroom, exactly we are going to do that, because the description of a stranger suggests that that stranger is an interloper. It has no business in the matter before the court.
The coast ought to be clear for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to commence with the trial of the immediate past National Security Advisor, Colonel Sambo Dasuki, but there are indications that his team of lawyers might be approaching the appellate court seeking their intervention. But one thing is certain, Dasuki's lawyers say they will file a suit against the Department of State Services seeking for the enforcement of his fundamental rights to liberty. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Ibrahim Magu, has appealed for more funding to help the anti-graft agency carry out its functions. Mr. Magu was speaking today when he appeared before the House of Representatives Committee on Financial Crime to defend the Commission's 2016 budget. The Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, also brought this same appeal when he appeared before the Senate Committee on Health. Our correspondent Larry Lasisi reports.
As work continues on the 2016 budget that is before the National Assembly, committees are meeting with the representatives of the different arms of the executive to put finishing touches to the over 6 trillion naira budget. But while it has been hailed as one of the highest in the country, agencies are still asking for more allocations. The Minister of Health, appearing before the Senate Committee on Health, raised the issue of a shortfall in the ministry's budget.
At the end of the day, when we looked at the budget, including submissions from the teaching hospitals, medical centers, agencies, everybody, it came down to 347 billion for health. And we got to only 335.7, which is about 10%.
The minister also touched on the Zika virus that is becoming a global concern.
You made mention of Zika. I want to say that Zika has been with us since 1954. We have Zika. about 25% of Nigerians are positive to Zika virus. And so, but what has happened is that it has done nothing to us.
In the House of Representatives, officials of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission also sought for more funds. The chairman was questioned on the agency's decision to investigate different sectors of the economy.
Are you considering those who have looted this country's funds?
I very much believe that even if you are going to give us everything we've asked, will not be adequate. But considering the fact that, the situation we are as it is, there's nothing we can do. But even if you give us everything here, everything I've said, will not be adequate.
A lot of these agencies are still expected to appear before the 2016 budget will be presented in plenary. Lanre Lasese, Channels Television News.
Nigeria has given the assurance that everything will be done to avoid its suspension from the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative 80 for failing to meet the report deadline. Executive Secretary of the Nigeria Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, NATI, Mr. Bunayaoji, during a meeting with 80 representatives in Abuja, said that with the constitution of the NATI board, which is expected in a few days, the issue will be resolved. Meanwhile, the deputy head of the AT Secretariat, Mr. Eddie Rich, says the decision on whether or not to suspend Nigeria will be made with special considerations for the peculiar circumstances in the country. State House correspondent Chukwuma Onwekusi reports.
Their main function is to ensure transparency in the extractive oil and gas sector. They monitor the governments of over 49 countries of the world to ensure that the oil money is used for the good of the common man. The 2013 report from Nigeria formed part of discussions at their board meeting.
If you could publish the report within 6 months of the suspension, then the suspension is automatically lifted. If it hasn't been lifted within that 6 months, then you have to produce the 2014 report before the suspension is lifted.
The 2 reports are in question already, since they have been ready since December 31st. And as soon as the pronouncement of the constitution of our board is made, the best business of that board will be to approve the report.
The board also paid a courtesy call on Vice President Yemi Oshibajo to introduce the incoming chairman of the initiative, Mr. Frederick Reinfeldt, who will be taking over from Claire Short next month. Mr. Frederick gives his impression about Nigeria and the need for transparency amidst the dwindling oil prices.
We understand at this time the distress in Nigeria linked to the fact that the price of oil has gone down. I think at a time like this it's extremely important that we keep a focus on transparency and accountability when it comes to how we handle all of these revenues. As mentioned, IT now have globally 49 countries following a standard, and the Nigerian work is very impressive, in advance of many other countries. So we're just here to support the very important job that are done here nationally by NITI, as the organization is called, and that it's used for actually telling the people about the revenues, and that you also can have a debate surrounding these matters so that you can use the resources for the best of the people.
Nigeria is one out of the over 49 countries that make up 80, while many other member nations who are oil producing are using the resources from oil for the good of the people. Nigerians are yet to benefit from the natural resources, a challenge for those in authority. Chukwuma Onwekusi, Channels Television News.
The British Minister of State for Foreign Affairs will be visiting Nigeria to press for the protection of civilians in the fight against insurgency in the northeast, as well as prevention of sexual violence in conflict. The British envoy, Baroness Annalay, who is also the Prime Minister's special representative for preventing sexual violence in conflict, is expected to hold high-level discussions with government officials, as well as civil society activists and non-governmental organizations while in the country. According to a statement by the British High Commission, Baroness Anale would meet with the Bring Back Our Girls campaign group and visit UK-sponsored projects aimed at reducing violence against women and girls. The UK is providing £6.7 million of humanitarian support to help those affected by Boko Haram. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Linda. And when the news at 10 returns, former CBN Governor and Emir of Kano, Mohammed Sanusi, says current exchange rate policies are doomed to fail. We'll have more on business news. But before that, some students in Afe Babalola University who were prevented from writing recent exams due to their poor academic performance have allegedly staged a protest on campus. Speaking with newsmen today, a member of the institution's board, Professor Isaac Orubuloye, condemned the protest, which he described as unruly. He added the property worth millions of naira were destroyed during the demonstration. Professor Rubuloye called on all parents and stakeholders to be calm as the situation is under control. Meanwhile, teachers in primary and junior secondary schools, as well as local government workers in Kwara State, suspended their 3-month-old strike action today. The suspension follows the intervention of the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, and the Emir of Ilorin, Alhaji Ibrahim Sulu Gambari. The workers embarked on the strike due to non-payment of salaries. Although the state government is yet to have set the debt, the workers took the decision to end the strike following the promise by the Senate President to ensure that the bailout fund from the federal government is used to pay them. Now to some sad news. 2 people have died after a motorcycle collided with a bus on Channels TV Avenue. Eyewitnesses told Channels Television that the motorcyclist and his passenger had veered into the path of the oncoming bus in a bid to avoid the opening door of a parked car. Our correspondent Charles Eruka reports.
It's an unusual traffic gridlock on Channels Avenue as this crowd gathers on the scene of a fatal accident. The motorcycle trapped under a bus tells part of the sad story. 2 young men, a commercial motorcyclist and his passenger, lie dead. Their family members and friends arrive on the scene. Their anguish knows no bounds. In anger and sorrow, they vent their frustration on the hapless bus, whose driver has already fled. According to eyewitnesses, the motorcyclist had swerved to avoid the opening door of a parked car in his path. A friend of the dead passenger tells us that the young man had been rushing to attend to a business call.
We sit down together. Just receive a call that she come to pick to come and collect a job. What happened? They now explained that the bike that Eleda carried, when he was coming, there's a car opened his door. After he opened his door, the driver for the bike now want to defend himself. As he want to defend himself, this pure water motor was speed. As he wanted to defend himself, just fortunately entered the road of the pure water, and the pure water just spied them and then dead.
As the grieving families of the victims remove their dead, the authorities also tow the bus away in order to clear the hold-up. Considering the volume of traffic witnessed on this road on a daily basis involving heavy-duty vehicles, buses, normal cars and motorcycles, it appears it's high time the traffic authorities do something about regulating traffic on Channels Avenue. From Channels Television Avenue, Charles Eruka, reporting for Channels Television News.
Sad events indeed. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families of those who lost their lives. Now, the 2015 class of the Nigerian Leadership Initiative has expressed its desire to partner with the federal government to rebuild the northeastern part of Nigeria ravaged by insurgency. Chief Executive Officer of the initiative, Mr. Yinka Oyinlola, who led the group to meet with Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo, explains the NLI intends to complement efforts being made by the government. The NLI is seeking interventions in health, education and rehabilitation of internally displaced persons. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo welcomed the initiative, pledging to support public-private initiatives across the country.
We have come as citizens of Nigeria, a group of accomplished leaders, patriotic Nigerians, to share with His Excellency the Vice President the project that the 2015 class of the Nigeria Leadership Initiative would like to do, which focuses on the reconstruction of Northeast Nigeria. So we've come to share our thoughts with His Excellency the Vice President and to let him know that we are willing to support the efforts of the federal government of Nigeria in rebuilding the northeast part of Nigeria. There are several initiatives in order to be able to rebuild the northeast. You have the Presidential Committee for the Northeast, you have the Victim Support Group. What we have come is to learn more about what the federal government is doing, so that what we are doing is not duplicating what the federal government has as plans, and we want to complement, not supplement, the federal government. And specifically, we are going to be looking at interventions in the health sector, in the education sector, and in terms of planning, rigorous planning that goes into the reconstruction effort in the Northeast.
Let's get more on business news now. Here's Imana Amawe.
You first. First Bank.
Hello and welcome to Business News. Nigeria's former central bank chief, Muhammadu Sanusi, the Emir of Kano, says the country's current exchange rate policies are doomed to fail. In an interview with the London-based Financial Times, the Emir of Kano says President Buhari's endorsement of the central bank currency policies risk undermining the progress recorded in fighting Boko Haram in the northeast and tackling corruption. The former central bank boss says the Buhari government does not have the reserves to keep the naira-dollar rate at its official rate, as restrictions in the forex market have created a lot of speculative and precautionary demand. Nigeria's currency reserves currently stand at some $28.2 billion, far less than the standard 11 months import cover. President Buhari has resisted the devaluation of the naira and supports the currency restriction of 41 imported items. However, he says the central bank is expected to begin the easing of FX restrictions in the course of 2016. And the new 5-story Murtala Mohammed International Airport terminal in Lagos will be completed by the end of 2016. This is according to the General Manager, Corporate Affairs at the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria, Yakubu Dati. He spoke today on our business program, Business Morning. Mr. Dati explains that the new terminal will be connected to the existing terminal facility to cater for the increased passenger inflow and outflow of the MMIA, Nigeria's air traffic location. And the world's largest independent oil trading firm, Vitol, says oil prices will stay low for as long as 10 years. Well, that's the viewpoint of Vitol's Group Chief Executive Officer, Ian Taylor, in an interview with Bloomberg. However, Taylor says crude prices are likely to recover with midpoint of $50 a barrel for the next decade, but warns that prices may never rally above $100 per barrel. The Vitol CEO's forecast comes as the oil trading community gathered today in London for their annual International Petroleum Week. And Taylor tells Bloomberg that oil prices will recover to about $40 to $50 towards the second half of the year. And as of today, the London traded Brent crude dipped 2.1% in early trade at $33.35 per barrel. Meanwhile, the first trading day of the week got a boost as positive performance from blue chip stocks led the markets to a good start. The all-share index gained more than 2%. BC Adebayo has details.
Hello and welcome to Stock Market Reports. The Nigerian equities market began the week on a bright note as key indicators appreciated by over 2% on the back of gains recorded by some market heavyweights. The all-share index grew to 23,977.10 with a market capitalization of 8.24 trillion naira. Dangote Cement led Monday's gainers, which also include Nestle and Seplat. On the flip side, Guinness lost 2.32% to emerge the day's heaviest loser, and it's followed by Mobil with a 1.77% decline, and Cornell, which lost close to 10%. Bank stocks drove market volume, and top on that list was FCMB with 38.52 million units. At the sound of the closing gong, investors had exchanged 190.39 million shares, valued at 1.69 billion naira in 2,748 deals. That ends the stock market reports. I'm Bisi Adebayo.
Many thanks, Bisi. Well, let's flip over to the global markets. It was mixed sentiments today. That's it on Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Imana Amawe. It's back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
You first. First Bank.
Former software development company System Specs is yearning for the transformation of the local software sector in Nigeria. The desire was revealed in Lagos when the Minister of Communications, Mr. Adebayo Shitu, visited System Specs. At that meeting, the management of the host company detailed how the transformation can be actualized.
System Specs is the name that comes to mind whenever electronic remittance is mentioned. Known for its invention of Remitter, the software on which the federal government's Treasury single account operates, System Specs is recognized for this milestone. Today, the firm under the leadership of its chief executive, Mr. John Obaro, has the privilege of hosting the communications minister, Mr. Adebayo Shitu. Mr. Obaro opens the floor with his thoughts on local content in indigenous software development.
Let us imagine that IPs at the OAGF is powered by an indigenous software and not one from USA. Let us imagine that ITAS at FIRS is powered by an indigenous software and not one from Canada. Let us imagine that BVN at NIPS is powered by an indigenous software and not one from Germany. Please permit me to state confidently that none of the applications I mentioned above is rocket science. They are all within the ambit of what the Nigerian software industry can develop and support if given the right backing.
Responding to the requests, the minister explains the reason behind his visit.
This meeting is essentially to come and encourage you, to come and give you a pat on the back, and to come and assure you that Nigeria would expect much more, from you for national development. We are certainly committed to all the ideals for which you are set up and for which you operate. And I think that our meeting should just be the starting point.
And thereafter is a gadget tour of System Specs.
We expect that government will be granting in pioneer status to indigenous software industry. 2, we expect increased patronage, of local software.
The Communications Ministry plans to launch an alternative Galaxy backbone, liberalize the Postal Service Agency, and establish 2 new technology hubs this year.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigerian taekwondoists miss out of the 2016 Rio Olympics after failing to pick a ticket at the African qualifiers in Morocco. We'll have details in sports news. Please stay with us.